Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Please go. Yes.
Thank you. So good afternoon to all of us, and welcome to our session this afternoon. I'm having a bit of a challenge with my internet. I don't know if it's Dr. Arthur's because I keep going on and off. I hope I'm able to stay on, and I'm not too sure if I can do the video. Okay, let's hope I don't drop off with the video. So good afternoon and welcome to our session this afternoon on parenting. I'm sure a lot of us maybe would be wondering why and how this is related to mental health, but you will agree with me that parenting is both a science and an art that supports the physical, the emotional, the social, and in fact, not just the spiritual, but also the cognitive aspect of our development as children from all the way from infancy to adulthood. And you will agree with me that in as much as it is satisfying to see your child turn out very well, it can also be a very stressful experience. And what can we do in this space to support each other to make sure that the children we raise as a society turn out well and are able to contribute and lead a fruitful life as
Dr. Misa has dropped off. So those of you who joined us, just a reminder that yes, I think so. She's dropped off entirely. So we are discussing parenting in the 21st century and its mental health implications. What parents and guardians need to know. What are the new things that are coming up that parents need to know in dealing with this problem? And we've already started asking the question. Dr. Misa, I've got you back on. Don't bother to put on your video. So just quickly round up for us. Dr. Misa, can you hear me? Dr. Misa, please unmute yourself and continue. I think we're about rounding up. Technology, I guess we'll go on. If you can hear me, thank you very much. You will still have the opportunity to join us and make remarks.
Thank you. I think, yes, yes, I dropped off, and thank you for allowing me back on. I'll just be snappy. So I'm just trying to see how we can connect our mental health to the kind of children we raise up to become adults. And I'm saying that in as much as it can be a very fulfilling experience or a satisfying one, it can also be very challenging, especially with the lot of influence or technology we have from other persons in the media, as much as in our social in space, like the web space, where children are able to have access to some inclines, some thinkings, some thoughts that may never have occurred to them, or they wouldn't have become exposed to if we were doing the parenting alone. But you will agree with me that now, as much as traditionally or culturally our extended family system has broken down in a way, the technology has also come to take over in a bigger way. Yes, it is true when some of us were younger, we had parenting, not just from our biological parents, but from all elders or adults who lived with us or who we came into contact with. So you talk about the school space, you talk about the church space.
there are so many spaces, but now the space has become so big, you cannot control what sometimes our children come into contact to, are exposed to. But I believe with all this in mind, we could also take advantage of what we have out there and still be able to churn out better adults within our society. So this afternoon, I'm sure we should be very open. Let's discuss issues dispassionately as much as we can. I know as parents, we strive to do our best for our kids, but we are not in total control, if you will agree with me now. But I believe that we can still put in our best, and whatever our children are exposed to, we can still shape them and make sure that from as young as 10, 11 years, when they can have issues of mental health, we can guide them so that we protect them and make sure that they have a good mental health. And that could probably contribute to them growing up and accepting to become responsible adults who can influence society and also maintain the mental health of their children and children's children and all that. So I won't speak much because of the internet. I will leave Dr. Atta and his team of experts to do justice to the topic. And I believe at the end of it all, we can also contribute and learn from one another and make sure that we have a better society. Thank you very much, Dr. Atta.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Nisa, for your input and welcome address. So 60 minutes into time, we are not wasting time at all. Dr. Atta, Johnny, let me call you Johnny for clarity. Me and you, we are brothers, so I can use our first name, so that's fine. So Johnny, I started with you. How has parenting evolved?
Okay,
to
so
present day to present day.
Thank you, Dr. Atta, for the opportunity, and good afternoon, colleagues. Yeah, so let me start from maybe where Dr. Emisa also ended. I mean, Dr. Emisa defined parenting as what? As a science and as an art. And we all know very well that science and arts are products of societies. They are products of culture. Okay, I mean, from the time where, you had to wait till you give birth to know the sex of your child. Now, within 2, 3, 4 months, you can know the sex of your child, meaning that science hadn't been stable. Science had really gone on. Science had evolved. From the time where we had to watch videos, using the pure Monco, now you can just watch videos on your phone. You don't need to go into a cinema to watch videos. So art has evolved. Same way, if parenting is also a science and an act, as society is evolving, parenting also involves. Of course, we know clearly that the practices that we used to, experience, when we were being parented, these days, when you try to use some of these practices, you may likely encounter challenges. From the days where children must only be seen and not heard, these days, you cannot continue to operate with that ethic. You are going to create a problem for your own self and from your children. So, our society has evolved, and there's a lot more issues of what? Rights, a lot more issues of what? Assertiveness. Children are getting more assertive. Parents are also getting a lot more influence, in changing their, parenting practices. I mean, I had a parent who was always using the cane on me. And the cane was very effective at the time. I mean, that was the only thing that she could use to really modify my behavior. But of course, with advancement of knowledge, we know very well that now there are other forms of disciplining a child, not necessarily the cane. And so I can say clearly and boldly that parenting has indeed evolved in the 21st century. And this is also shaped by the fact that we are in a century where we have information superhighway. Okay, parents are getting a lot more information and knowledge on parenting from, internet, from other sources. Children are also getting a lot more information about how to live as children. And so with, the flux of all these, happening within the society, obviously, parenting as an art and as a science will also change. And I want to believe that the 21st century parenting is not the parenting as I enjoyed when I was when I was in the 80s as a child. So that's what I will say about that for now.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Akuno is back on. Dr. Akuno, can you hear me? Unmute yourself. Dr. Kuno, can you hear me? I've made you the co-host, so you can easily unmute yourself. Oh, it's dropped off again. No, he's on. Dr. Kuno, you should be able to hear me. Please unmute yourself. Okay, perhaps you'll come back. So Johnny, let me ask, so the current parenting style, they are telling us to spare the rod and spoil our children. Is that what it's telling us?
Well, of course, people will borrow from this in the Bible. I something that I personally, at some point, strongly believed in. The rod is there to always help the child, direct the child. But at least with advances in knowledge, I mean, all of us here agree with me that the rod alone, okay, is not the way, okay, to direct a child. And so let me say that yes, you will still can use the rod, okay, to some extent, but over-reliance on the rod may not really produce the needed, outcome that you expect. There are other means of still modifying the behavior of a child, directing a child. And so I still want to believe that there has been some evolution of parenting away from the strict spare the rod, spoil the child, to a lot more, more of an eclectic approach, okay, to child rearing, where now we draw on different, frames to be able to bring the best out of the child, and also making the child really, an agent in the process itself. The child used to be very passive in the past, but now the child is also an active participant in the whole process of parenting.
Right. Dr. Edgar Akuno is on. Dr. Akuno, we're asking what has changed from parenting in the past to the 21st century, from the sociological point of view. What have you learned?
All right, Doug, thank you very much, and sorry for the hiccups. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
All right, thank you. I think there are a few things we have to note, just as my other colleagues have noted. The kind of sociocultural environment in which children are growing have changed. Now you have very strong media intrusion. I'm saying media intrusion, media presence, that now the line between private and public is becoming very blurred. In other words, in the past, you can virtually corner your child, bring him or her up according to your own standards, your own models, without much problem. But now there are so many things with the presence of the media that just with some few minutes, the child can have a lot of access to information that may even be contrary to the values, the norms that the parent prefers the child should inculcate. Again, these digital devices that are now everywhere, that in the name of COVID, children have been so much exposed to, have also opened up a new dimension of world to children, where parents now have a huge challenge of having to learn, master these devices in order to guide their children. In fact, there are a lot of parents who will say that I'm not familiar, I don't know. In fact, it's dangerous for a parent nowadays to say that I will not educate myself in terms of the social media landscape, internet and ICT, and allow our children alone. Because one, for example, now they come from school with their work and they expect you to facilitate, help them do the work. The other side is that because they are smart, they are so quick to pick new things, they can do things with this gadget that parents sometimes we may not even be aware. So I think one of the key challenges in our time is digital parenting. how parents can master these digital devices so that we can guide, direct, help our children to get the best out of these devices. In fact, it's you can't just say that I don't know. You must, because if you don't do that, then it means that the child will be so much ahead of you. And the danger is that these devices can be used for other things or what is not intended. And remember, we have both good and bad materials online. So that is one area that can be very depressing, that can be very stressful, and that can also impact on mental health.
Wow, thank you very much. So the growth in the media and social media and ICT is what has brought the change to parenting. And for that matter, a parent who refuses to educate him or herself about ICT will be far behind the child. Okay. And for that matter, it has its own mental health. Let me ask the psychologist, the child psychologist. Ethel, so from where you sit, how has Dr. Akona has cleared the surface, delving deeper into it? How has the digital space, affected parenting? And what are its mental health implications of all that? Perhaps there will be the good side, there will be the bad side. So maybe you can dwell on the good side as well as the bad. Dr. Amabud would also share a perspective on that when we are done.
Okay, thank you so much. So I believe that the digital age definitely has had a profound impact on parenting, and then also on the child's mental health. So it's not just even on the child, but then also the parent. Because now when it comes to screen time, there's an increase, and then there's also exposure to online content, and all of that can actually impact or contribute to issues we have, such as cyberbullying, social isolation, and then also a reduction in terms of physical activity. So children are sitting a lot more and just using their eyes and their ears, but not doing the exercise. They are not moving about. And so for parents, and I think just like my senior colleagues mentioned, at this point in time, it's very important that parents consider or actively find ways to manage and regulate the digital activities that children get to engage in, so that there can be a healthy development. Because when we're talking of, we're not looking at just one aspect, but all angles. We're looking at the child's spiritual, the psychological, the cognitive development, the social emotional aspects as well. And then also to find ways to mitigate any negative effects or potential effects that could have. So there's one thing that I mentioned, that digital overload. So now there's a constant exposure. Every child now, you see, sometimes you come to a clinic, you find a parent sitting their child just waiting to see the practitioner, the medical practitioner. And every child is either on their parent's phone or probably on a tablet. And when you have a digital overload, it can actually affect the child in terms of contributing to stress, anxieties, and some decreased well-being in both the parent and then also with the child as well. So everybody is kind of plugged in because there's so much information out there. Then the other bit is that sometimes also impacts, or it makes it easier for bullying to occur. So we have the cyberbullying and then also some online harassment that could take place, because some people, well, to a large extent, you can actually be anonymous. And so you're able to, it become, it's easier for bullies to target victims. And that can lead to feelings of fear. There's also shame, and then also some social isolation. Then there's the part about sleep disruption. So we all, I'm sure we're familiar with what we call it melatonin, which is a hormone that helps to regulate sleep. Just last week, I had a child come in. The main concerns were that the child is not doing so well in school. And upon getting detailed history from parents, they allow their son, who is just 5 years, to watch cartoons from about the time he gets home from school, which is 5, till about 11, 12. And they didn't see or find anything wrong with it. So child is not sleeping, he's not doing too well. as well. So some of these devices, particularly before bedtime, can actually impact the sleep patterns as well. So once we're exposing, allowing our children to be exposed to screen time, this melatonin actually, there's some deprivation because there's that detrimental effects that could happen on the child's mental health. Then they become irritable, there's difficulty concentrating, and then also gets to also impact their emotional regulation. Then there's another, maybe I'll just mention quickly, which is FOMO. So FOMO means fear of missing out. Social media platforms, everybody has now curated what they want you to see. So we have individuals living a grand lifestyle. They're showing everything where they're off to. It's like they're giving the best of what it is they experience. Yet a lot of it is actually not, it's all like make-believe, it is not real. So sometimes also triggers that fear that we're losing out because they are seeing their peers engage in activities or events that maybe they were not invited to and all of that. So it makes them feel excluded. And then also there's some anxiety and social pressure that can also come with. So just so I don't speak on all, maybe I'll leave the rest for the next person to continue.
Okay, thank you very much. Before Dr. Boadu comes in, ladies and gentlemen, feel free to share your comments as we go on. I'll read your comments and your questions if there are any, and would direct them to any of the facilitators to respond for us. Dr. Boadu, your thoughts? How this digital age impacts on mental health?
So thank you very much for the opportunity. I think a lot has been said. But one more thing that I would want to add is the fact that this current dispensation, brings about a lot of information, and information could be negative or positive. And depending on how we utilize the digital age in which we are, the fact that there's so much information around, and depending on how we decide to utilize it, it could either be good or bad. FL mentioned, excessive screen time. Apart from excessive screen time, we realize that we are interacting less with our children because of the challenges that we currently are facing. Some of the challenges that parents are having currently is the fact that, a lot of us are working, and therefore we need to balance between parenting and then our careers. So the question is, who is taking care of our children back at home? Who is taking care of the children when they are in school? Is it that we leave these children in the care of, probably a house help who doesn't even know how to take care of herself, or in some school where the child is receiving very little stimulation? When it comes to child development, we know that the right and adequate form of stimulation is very important for the child's development. But in this age where, parents are interacting less with their children, because certainly there are challenges, economic challenges, and for which reason, when we were growing, most of our mothers were around, so there was always somebody. And then, like Dr. Caroline mentioned, we have the external family supporting as well. But these days, it is just, the nuclear family. It is you, your spouse, and then your children, and probably a house help. So there's that, competition for time. And because we are economically challenged a lot of times, parents are more concerned about, making money, forgetting that when you make the money and come home and the child did not grow well, that same child is going to be that armed robber. That same child is going to be that one that gives you a lot of stress. So it's very important that even though we have these challenges, we need to make a conscious effort. We need to make a conscious effort to make time for our children. There was one quote that I saw somewhere that we have 3 resources. Everybody has 3 resources. That is your time, your knowledge, and then your money. You can use any of these to get the others that you do not have. What am I trying to say? In as much as we need to work and get the money, when we get the money, what are we using the money for? It is important that if we are not able to stay back home and take care of our children. I mean, we should get the right people who would stimulate these children so that they develop very, very well. Then, in terms of the other challenges, she mentioned bullying. Children are very, very vulnerable, but as adults or as parents, it's very important that we also try and matter to them. It's very, very challenging, and the children know a lot. They learn so fast, but we must, as much as possible, also try to be, at par with them, or at least be able to communicate with them, be able to engage them at their level. Because when they realize that we are behind them, then it becomes very difficult for them to even interact with us. So there shouldn't be that problem of generational gap, because between our children and us, we are the best form of, caregivers that our children can ever have. Yes, they will have their teachers, they will have the others outside, but the parent is the most important or the most critical person in the development of a child. And therefore, even though we have our own challenges as parents, there is a need for us to make that conscious effort to be better parents. Yes, so our parenting styles, yes, we cannot use the same parenting styles that our parents used. Haven't we realized that our parents, or grandparents treat their grandchildren or our children very differently from how they treated us? It is just because they realize that what the method they used cannot be as effective as it was now, because our children are more assertive. They would ask questions. They will not just comply because you said so. So it's very important that we are able to engage our children. Let us not think that we cannot learn from our children. In fact, our ability to learn from their children will even boost their self-confidence, so that they feel that I'm good enough such that I'm able to teach somebody else. So it's very important that we understand that the children are as human as we are. They might express things differently or experience, the situations or the experiences differently, but we all go through similar challenges and all that. And let's try and address them. If we are not talking to our children or not interacting or engaging with them, we can be certain that someone else is doing it and is not doing it rightly. So there's a need for that conscious effort to engage our children and be their best friend. We need to be their best mentor, everything, so that they don't need to go out there to get the information, but rather can always come to us. That's what I think I want to see for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bodo. In actual fact, you've almost preempted my next question. But that being said, what it means is that balancing work-life issues has given us less time to interact with our children. And for that matter, that is allowing them to have a lot of screen time. They are constantly on the phone, on the iPads, doing whatever they want, exposing them to good information, to bad information, exposing them to cyberbullying, letting them have less sleep, less exercises, and all that. All this has mental health implications for them as children. And when they have mental health implications, of course, we also bear the brunt of it. And to some extent, we also have our own mental health implications. Now, so Dr. Johnny, let me ask you. So how can we foster this healthy communication between us and our children, ensuring that emotional connection, reducing the time that because for me, I'm seeing that more time that they spend on the screen, which perhaps suits us because we are working hard, doing that. So if they have that, it gives us that freedom to do whatever we have to do. But then again, it has its own negative implications. So looking at this circumstance, how can we ensure that healthy communication with them to make sure that
Sure.
we avoid this. Yes.
Look, I think that we must make that conscious effort. We must see parenting as an intentional process. It's an intentional event. You must be intentional about it. You're intentional about it. Okay, I mean, you should not be just having children, raising children by accident. Be very conscious, be very intentional, and know really what it takes, you know, what it means to be a good parent. I think it's important, again, for us to bear in mind that every child is unique. Every child is unique, has his or her own temperament, personality, and what have you. And so the kind of parenting, you know, style, okay, will also be detected, be influenced by the type of a person, the child that you are raising. And so when you understand this uniqueness about a child, obviously you will then know what kind of style will I have to adopt to ensure that I engage, to ensure that I communicate. In fact, we are having increasing cases where students or where children, I mean, JSS, I'm doing some work in JSS and secondary school, where they are always complaining of what? Lack of parental presence. So parents are thinking that, well, my topmost priority is to just go out there to work and bring get the money to attend to the children's needs and all that. Yeah, that's very important. We are not really undermining that, but children also need you. Now, how many times do you intentionally create the space for an interaction between you and your parent, you and your children, sorry? How many times do you create that intentional time to even just listen to their concerns? Okay, so I don't think that it takes rocket science for us to really, you know, create the right atmosphere for promoting communication. But we must know clearly that they need us, much as we also need them. They want to learn a lot from us, much as we also want to learn a lot from them. But when we don't consciously create a time, we may be busy. We don't create the right spaces at the right time for them. Then obviously we are just leaving them to go away. And indeed, we are also finding a lot more cases where these children are finding approval and validation on social media. They are not appreciated at home. The parents do not have time for them. And so when they go to social media, they get a family. They're actually building a community on social media. That is where they feel belonged. That is where they feel approved. They feel validated. To the extent that now we have students or we have children who sometimes get access to social media, they put pictures there, they don't find the likes, and they get depressed because they are not finding the likes. They put a picture there in the morning, and the whole day they'll be going there often just to check how many likes am I getting. These are the cases we are seeing. And so parents, I think that we all know what to do. We need to ensure that the topmost, as far as our responsibility is concerned, is the children. And then the others may also fall in line. Let us not prioritize the others, you know, at the expense of that engagement with the children.
All right, thank you. So we need to make that healthy, conscious effort of communicating and spending time with them. Would that build that emotional connection? Let me ask Ethel. You are in school, you are dealing with children. What has been your experience? Would it help? Ethel.
All right, so absolutely. Just like Dr. Ando Arthur said, we're currently in a very fast-paced world. And I think one of the things I usually tell parents is the intentionality. I mean, it's not something, I mean, it's something that I think we can't stop saying. It's very important for us as parents that we are intentional in everything. So the part about being an active listener, making sure that you take the time to listen to your child, because they have ways of communicating. For those that are younger, they might not say things as they are, but they will show in their behavior. For those that are much older, they'll be able to communicate that with you. So you have to create some dedicated quality time. You can actually put all the phones away. You can put the laptops away. Sometimes you find parents even sitting with their children. Maybe their child is watching TV, father is working, you know, he's brought home, he's brought work from home. And there's little to no communication. At times, even the child is saying something because they want the parents' attention. We are not even looking, we are not listening, we're just giving half answers because we are more focused on our work. So parents need to do that. So that will mean engaging the activities that your children enjoy. You could say, well, during family times, no phones allowed, no tablets, no gadgets at all. Just having conversations about your day. At times as well, you can even use the little times like even dropping your children off. That can be a time to ask all sorts of questions, talk to your children, and then ensure that you have open and non-judgmental environment created. The reason for that is that when your child feels comfortable in expressing their thoughts, their emotions, and their concerns, based on how you receive it, it would encourage them to share more, or to, keep and probably look for that validation from somewhere else. So when there's a fear of criticism or even punishment, there's no way that child is actually going to open up again to you. So we need to also have some empathy. So validate your child's emotions and experiences. Even if you don't fully understand or even agree with them, but at least show some empathy, acknowledge their feelings. I understand where you're coming from. This is what you're trying to say. And at times even give names to those feelings, label them so they get to know, and teach them how to process those emotions. Somebody said something which wasn't very pleasant to your child. Well, this is how your child is feeling. I understand how you feel. It is okay to cry, but when you're done, teach your child to look at it from a different perspective. So it's like you're teaching your child to look at things from other ways or other angles, and then also teach them, that it's okay or it's valid. Whatever it is that you're feeling is also important. And then be mindful of your own reactions. Parents, caregivers, I would say that, in terms of modeling, you're the first model. Whatever it is you are doing, what you are showing, what you are saying, it is that way the child is actually going to watch and then also enact. And so be mindful of how you react when your child opens up to you. Respond with empathy and be patient and understanding, rather than jumping to quick judgments and also dismissing their feelings. And so that would mean that as much as possible, you are creating that two-way communication for your child to be comfortable to open up to you, and then also be available. Make yourself available to your child. I think that the older generation, if I can recall, parents were feared, especially our fathers. The moment you hear your dad's car honking, quickly, if you're doing anything, he's not going to be happy with. Quickly, you drop it, or probably, just leave whatever it is and go and maybe sit, take your book as if you're reading. And when he was around, you realize that you're not able to express yourself so much. You keep quiet. It's like you're walking on eggshells. You have to be available to your child so that when they need to ask something, they can feel comfortable enough to approach or to get the support from you. And then the other bit would also be practicing emotional intelligence. So help your children to identify and understand their own emotions and then those of other people, and provide guidance on how you want them to manage and then also express their own emotions, but in healthy ways. It is okay to be angry. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be upset about something. But in all of this, also ensure that you're teaching them how to express their emotions in a better way.
Thank you very much, Bethel, for that exposure. Now, in actual fact, I was talking to one parent, and from her perspective, I said, Dr. These children, you'll be surprised what they know. You have to be friends with them, really friends with them, and they will teach you stuff and tell you stuff that you have no idea that they knew. So we need to be friends. We need to have that intentional, we need to make that intentional step of communicating with them, having patience to listen to them, being empathic with them, listen to them, developing them emotionally and all that. Well, Dr. Maywolf, she told me once, Patrick, I think it's your microphone or your sound. Please check that. Maywolf, see that she's been a regular facilitator here. She said, pampering your children is being irresponsible to them. I don't know if I've said it right, May. It's being irresponsible to them because it means that it's being negative. But that brings me to the next question about being the perfect parent. Being the perfect parent. So, what impact does the pressure to be a perfect parent have on mental health And how does parents overcome this pressure? You want to be nice to them. You have to want to be the perfect parent, especially when there is that subtle competition between the father and the mother. The mother is always agreeable and the parents all wants to shape so that the mother wants to be the perfect one or the father wants to be. How do parents balance between this pressure? How do parents balance between this pressure, looking at the impact which also has its own implications? Perhaps, Amma, would you like to take that up?
Thank you very much. So my initial comment is that we should all lighten up on ourselves. Let us not be too hard on ourselves simply because we want to be perfect. Because there's really no one that is perfect. Parenting is actually a vocation. It is something that you do for the rest of your life. And if it's a lifelong, a lifetime vocation that you're going to be engaged in, there is a lot of time, there is a lot of opportunity for us to move at a pace that is not detrimental to us. See, even though we have to be very mindful, because at that level or at that point in a child's life, our influences are such that they would impact on the child either negatively or positively for the rest of the child's life. But every parent should know that there is none perfect, so that when we realize that we are not getting it right, we don't, or we are not too hard on ourselves. Okay, so we are not too hard on ourselves, because when we are too hard on ourselves, we as parents, develop, so we feel inadequate. So a parent feeling inadequate, can, fall into depressed or can become depressed. There's a lot of anxiety all the time. And when these things happen, certainly it affects how we even parent the child. Because for a parent that is going through all these things, you are so irritable, your child can no longer be child. The slightest thing, we are screaming at the child and all that. So let us know, we cannot be perfect, even though we aim at perfection. But perfection, it's a difficult state to attain when it comes to parenting. Again, I'll still go back. Our parents are using different strategies because they realize that whatever strategy that they use is not working. But having said that, in this digital age, there's a lot of information, good or negative, but we want to look out for, good information. So like this particular platform that we use in MHA, I would want to commend MHA for this particular discussion, because it doesn't really happen. It's not a common happening that we discuss a topic as, parenting, but it's very, very important. So then when we have our own challenges, how are we able to get help? You only know the points where you need help when you are able to identify that I have changed from my normal self. So first and foremost, every parent must know ourselves. So we need to be able to identify when we are overwhelmed, when we are stressed. Stresses, people experience stresses differently. And so every parent must know what actually stresses you out, so that when you find yourself in that state, there's a lot of experience that we can draw from our personal experiences. So you ask yourself, how were you able to cope with a previous experience or similar one? So we have our coping strategies that we could have used. And again, we can learn from other places, from other individuals. There's a lot of books, there are a lot of opportunities, videos, audios, several engagements where we can learn about these things. So there's a need for every parent to be aware of himself or herself, so that when we are overwhelmed, we can get help. In that way, we don't go transferring our stresses on the children and therefore impacting on them negatively.
All right, thank you very much. Go ahead then.
Okay, so we being able to identify our stresses, it's very also important that parents are able to identify, we should know our children. It's very, very important that we know our children. Ethel mentioned some of the things. I'd want to say that we need to be informed, and that means we need to acquire the knowledge like I have already mentioned. We need to be very observant for the subtle changes that occur in our children. They might not communicate verbally, but as parents, when we are observing, we can tell that a child, has changed. A child, is going through some challenges. Sometimes they are just quiet, they are just withdrawn. But once we make them very comfortable to be able to express themselves when they have these challenges, or even when we are a source of stress to them, then they will be able to voice it out, and then we'll be able to help them better and help ourselves as well. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Amma. Being the perfect parent, overcoming the pressure. Ethel, do you have a different perspective or new ideas to what Amma said?
All right, thank you very much. So I would add on to what she said. She said quite a lot, and it's true. There's no perfect parent. Even I'm not perfect. And so that pressure of trying to, asking yourself, am I doing it right? Is there anything I can do better? I mean, I've also passed through that phase, and that was a lot because it just creates unnecessary stress for you, the anxiety, and then feeling inadequate as well. Sometimes it comes about and then you have this self-doubt and guilt. But recent years, what I have learned personally is to ask for help. So it's okay to admit that at this point in time, I don't think I can deal and that I need help. So if it's a family member that you trust who can take over sometimes, why not? You can't do it all. I remember when I had, so the early years for me, that's with my children. I mean, the whole place sometimes, the toys are everywhere. And somebody would say that sometimes you have these OCD-like traits. You don't have it, but, you like things to be done a certain way. You have things, I like working kind of organized. It helps me mentally. But when you have children, sometimes it's not as organized as you would like it to be. You're worried about, am I also doing it well when it comes to children? Are we doing? It's like you're trying to manage everything all at the same time. But it's okay sometimes to understand or to recognize that you can't do it all. So if you can set some realistic expectations, I think that is better. And the other bit, like I mentioned, would be asking for help as and when, so you can take a few breaks and then getting the community, some support. So fortunately for me, I have a group, there are women who love to read. And I also love to read. So we have this, and then there are, they have children. So there are times when we have these conversations outside of the whole reading, which have to do with other things that have to do with self-care and what is happening with a particular person's child and all of that. We get to talk about that. So it's like a very honest place to be yourself and not to pretend and not to feel like you have it all together. So surrounding yourself with a supportive network, a family or friends, or other parents who seem to be doing well or doing better, it is really helpful because then you get to share experiences, you get to ask for advice, and get to normalize some of the challenges you go through as a parent or as a caregiver. Then learn to embrace your own perfections as well. But importantly, focus on what is important. What is essential at this point in time? It is providing and nurturing your children, providing a safe environment for them. So shift from that perfectionism to nurturing a strong and healthy child, relationship with your child is the most important thing. And then also having self-compassion. Be kind to yourself, be gentle, be compassionate towards yourself. Learn to treat yourself also with some understanding and empathy, just as you would to any other person. That yes, you are doing your best and it's okay to make mistakes, but then when you make the mistakes, don't stay there. Learn along the way. That's what we're all doing. We're still learning. I'm still learning. And I believe every other parent who even has raised you a very good child is still learning. So we never stop. And so don't feel so bad. If you've made some mistakes, it's still not too late, but you can learn along the way. So thank you very much.
Fantastic. I am thinking that what we have, I am building on, I'm commenting on the seeking for help. You know, looking back, I think that as kids, that is what our parents had. You had somebody in the community who is looking out for a child for you, because that person comes to your house and say hello to the family. So sees that person, sees your kid outside and has some sort of control. Aunties, everybody, school, everybody has an eye on your kid, and you can they easily ask, oh, I'm going here, take care. But it looks like that is limited now. So I like your idea about seeking for help in other ways, in a refined form than what was in the past, looking back, reminiscing back. So I think I like that. And we need to have self-compassion. It can be right, but like the focus on what is important for the family, for the kids and all that is also key for me. Phoebe and Mbumsika, it's not time for questioners. Would you be kind enough to drop your hands? It's very destructive. Very destructive. Dr. Kono, let me come to you before I go reading what people have shared in comments. Social media. What role, let me ask my question. What role does social media play in shaping parents' experiences and mental well-being? What are the lessons there, and what caution must parents also be aware of? Social media has become a thing, and that has been said earlier on, mentioned briefly earlier on, that you need to be at par with the children because they're already ahead of us. But what other things can you comment on? What role does social media and how does it impact on parents' experiences of what are the nuggets there and what care should we take?
All right, thank you very much, Doc. Just a couple of comments and I'll come to the main question. In our attempt to overcome the challenges of parenting in our days, you know, a lot of parents are becoming very overprotective. They are trying to show love and they are becoming extensively permissive. Sometimes when I go to the malls and see the way parents relate with their children, it's not very healthy. Again, we've underscored the fact that there's nothing like a perfect parent. Now, sometimes it's because we are comparing notes.
Dr. Akuna, let me come in. This permissive nature of parents, has it got to do with the social class, or you think it cuts across? So just chip that in for me.
Definitely, it cuts across. If you go to the vulnerable communities, I mean, anything goes. And then you also have those who have the wherewithal in the name of love. You know, sometimes parents in their youthful days were deprived. Now they have it. So they want to show that extensive affection. Anything their children want, they want to give it to them. But we know that some amount of no restraint is also important in this process. That healthy development, healthy parenting also include our ability to be firm and say, this is not good for you, this wouldn't help you. So it's one of the cautions that we have to take home. And again, we also have issues with children spending too much time indoors, leading to obesity. They are not actively engaged outside. and always they are with their gadget. And sometimes this create addiction problems because they've gotten so hooked on to internet, etc. Now, for those of us who have access to social media, there's a challenge there. Now we have been bombarded with so much information, and sometimes you may be tempted to think that you are not all that good, you are not doing so much. So what we need to do is that we need to know exactly what we need and the way we want to have our children shaped or groomed. We should know the values, the standards. You know, we can learn from other sources, but you see, we have our own family values. Some of them are very good, our cultural values. We cannot always rely on anything we find on social media. Let me say that sometimes, you see, the way people, they call it flaunting, go on social media and show off. Now things that are private are becoming so public, and the line between private and public, we don't know. Now, these are things that we need as parents. We need to let our children. That's why the intentionality is key, that we will be intentional in telling our children there's a difference. There's a line between what is public and what is private. Again, there are so much we can learn from the healthy things, but you see, you should know what you want, because actually, if you don't know what you want and you go to the social media space, you can be miserable. You feel you are not doing so much. You feel that there's something missing. Now, let's take note as parents. One, a lot of us are worried about the future of our kids. So we are working so hard to get them estates, houses, money. Let me tell you, most of them will not appreciate what we are doing. And again, if we don't get them to develop the right set of values, attitudes, and develop holistically, they will actually squander whatever estate we are building for them. But if we spend time with them, just as we've already underscored, and shape their values, their character, model them well, the little that will live with them, they can manage it and even develop it. I've seen so many people who worked so hard, left their children estate, now they've squandered everything because the character development, the training, the inculcation of the right values was problematic. So for us, what can we take from the social media? Yes, there's so much information, but please know what you want. Now, when I'm a Christian, so my Christian values shape what I seek out for when I go on social media. I'm also a Ghanaian, a typical Ghanaian. I know some cultural values that are good. Our respect for the elderly, our need to preserve order in social space. We cannot just get up and insult anybody in the name of democracy and free speech. These are values that no matter where we are or what we are, we have to cherish and inculcate. So when you go to social media and find people doing the awful things, we should be able to draw a line and then let our children, just as we talk about, helping them, guiding them, know that yes, all these available information is there, we can tap into, but know what you want, because there's good there and there's also a lot of chaff in the social media space. And I should also want to say, Doc, that in parenting business, and especially in the time in which we find ourselves, there's no point in competing for the affection of children by parents. Sometimes, unfortunately, instead of us collaborating as parents, we tend to compete for the affection of the children. And it's all going to affect the way we shape these children. Again, in talking about time, creating space for them, one of the things we have to do in our age is to create specific space where, as a family, we meet, iron out issues, or what I call family conferences, where we will help our children even to build their own ability to assert themselves. And these are the periods where we can come out and help them where they have issues. I know some of us, by the orientation we had, this is going to be very difficult for us. But hey, if we don't do it, we are going to be in peril. So that's what I have to say. And I think we need to collaborate very well, cooperate, especially as parents, so that we can groom our children very well.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kuno. 8 minutes past 1. As parents, we need to draw the line. And talking about being so worried about the future of our children, so we are building houses, getting them jobs, saving for them and all that, whether they would appreciate it when we are alive and gone is also another matter. But I remember something that my old man told me. He said, what if I leave you a house full of money and you don't have the wisdom and character? You will burn it in a day, and which is what I would really be sad about. So let's get the wisdom and let's get the character first. But social media, if we are not careful, might let us build certain characters that wouldn't help us, even though we leave them with all the fortunes that we can leave them. I think that is about time that I read a few comments. I'll leave out the questions for now until we get to the questions then. Oh, where are my chats? Oh boy. I can't find my chat. My chat has vanished. Oh boy. Let's go on. I'll deal with that whilst we are on. So, Johnny, when we balance the two, as to we as parents working our asses off to fend for the children, and for that matter, we do not have that connection with them, creating mental health problems. Yes, we've been told that we need to make that intentional time to spend with them, explore with them, discuss with them, seek their opinion, empathize with what we have to say, be patient with what they have to say, and be able to guide them. As parents, how can we build resilience and helping to build the emotional well-being of our children?
Yes. In fact, thank you very much for this question, because I think that in our current dispensation, what our children are lacking is resilience building. We are not presenting life as supposed to be presented to them. They are not seeing life as a real, thing. We are presenting just a side of life to them, and therefore, they have grown up having this entitlement mindset that everything that they need, they must get it, and that is life for them. And so I think that we've got to be so real with our children. One thing that I always advocate is that, you see, your child, of course, you cannot deny your child, of anything that he needs. But sometimes let a child know very well that this is there, but I will not give it to you until certain things have been done. Let a child value, the essence of working to gain something. Right? Let a child also appreciate the fact that life is not a bed of roses. It will not only be sweet. There are other sides of life, which comes with pain. All right, okay. And when this, a side of life come, it comes also to build us. We learn a lot from that. The world should not come to an end because you were not able to pass an examination. Indeed, in my work as a suicide researcher and someone who works in the area of suicide prevention, these are the issues that I'm facing constantly in my office here at the University of Ghana. So then come in and they fail an examination and they think that life has to come to an end. They are demanding something from parents, and parents are not able to provide, and therefore parents are wicked, and therefore they have nothing to hang on again. So let us really, let them see real life. Sometimes I think we don't lose anything to even just go on vacation. Let us go out of Accra. They should see the other side of life, how you made it. They should go to your hometown and see the realities in your hometown, how you came out of that reality to become who you are. All right, we should also sit down with them and tell them about our own downsides in life and how we came out of it. And for me, resilient building, again, can also be built when we create chores for our children at home. Let's learn to let a child grow up with that autonomic sense that he can also fulfill something on his own in the house. We don't have to wait till the child is 12 years before we teach the child how to what? To sweep, how to wash, how to lay the bed. Let us teach them. Indeed, I think we are creating a certain culture, what I call the cult of children. We are creating some cults around children where we have basically become so helpless. And the children are dictating the pace. They are controlling us as parents. Because like Doc said, we felt we had a very difficult past and therefore God has blessed us. And so our children should not really go through what we went through. Yes, I understand. I certainly will not let my children go through all the painful past. But there were some key, lessons that I learned from all those pasts. In what way can I also present such opportunities for these children, for them to also learn that in life, you may also have to go through certain situations, unpalatable as they may be, but there's something that can be learned out of it. So if a child fails in examination, for instance, how do we receive the story? Do we go about blaming the child? Do we tell the child that the child is a disgrace to the family? And a case I'm handling where a family told a child that the child has failed and therefore he's become a disgrace to the family. And I'm telling you, they are struggling to really get this child to open up. I have to come in, and I'm still working on the child just by one comment because of what? Failure. But some of us have failed before. How do we bounce back? How do we help support these children to bounce back? So I think we must be good models to our children by telling them the entire story about our life, how we have also grown up of our adversities and come where we are. And of course, how we can also ensure that they will make choices that will produce positive consequences for them. So let us really share that entitlement mentality by building that resilience. And these are, for me, some of the steps we can adopt in building resilience in them.
All right, thank you very much. I think I have my comments now. 1:15. We have 446 participants. So I think it's fair that we share a few comments that has come up. Ethel, when I'm done, I would want to add your mind to building resilience by Dr. Ando, and we'll continue from there. Zoom user said, I would like to share a recent experience, but I'll have to do it via speaker, please. Okay, so when it's question time, I'll let you do that. You raise your hand and I'll call you. Reverend Engineer Texan, asking if you can get the slides afterwards. I'm pretty sure today is your very first time. This is about the 21st of the seminars that we've had, and all of them, but this one is on YouTube. Just type in MHA Webinar. When you type in MHA Webinar, all that we've done in the past would pop up. This would be ready, hopefully on Monday. So from Monday, you can look out for this one. But all that we've done in the past is on YouTube. Tamate is asking a question. I'll come back to it. For now, let me read the comments. I'll come back to your question. Francis Anderson is also, okay. Madam Obin, please, how do I deal with my child of 6 years who is hyperactive, and the only way to calm him down is the screen time? Case things on the internet, it's difficult, I must say. Indeed, it is difficult. Kingsley, is it possible to get a certificate? Kingsley will be working on that. Thank you. Samsung. How do you address in the past? Nanama, you just heard me about the recording. Akofa is also asking a question, so I'll read that question that's later on. Akampule, I think I just responded to your question. People are interested in the recording, but I just explained that. Esther, when it's time, I'll let you talk. I would like Ethel to throw more light on this for me. There is similarly increase in cases of autism all over the world. Could it be that as kids spend all their time on TV, laptop? Okay, I'll come back. Techno. Definitely, I'll be glad if you write your name, and I know that you're a male or female. You always here, but you hardly change your name. I have said it several times. Akofa again is asking a question. Dennis, thank you for the presentation so far. Please, what strategies can parents adopt to reduce screen time for our children, especially between age 2 and 7? Ethel has answered down that. Charles Atia, sparing the rod in context does not mean refraining from caning. It is a technology used in reference to discipline. Hence, that scripture should not stir the thought of caning alone. Discipline is a good interpretation of it, and discipline is not done with the cane alone. That is drawing the line, setting the boundaries. I think they've mentioned that in their presentations. Paco, we have 2 kids. We have no helper. Every morning before and after school, I wish I can teach my elder kids 3 years, but the little one 1 year will be distracting. The mother will be at the kitchen cooking, and when the little one joins, the mother at the kitchen, she touches everything. There was one time she poured hot water on the stove. So now the only option is to put on the TV for the little one. This is to make it uneasy for, this also makes it uneasy for the elder one to concentrate on his learning. There's a question. Okay, so we'll come back to it, Paco. That's what most parents experience. And Nanama Aqua, it appears that parenting is being affected by the advent of the crumbling traditional family, causing a kind of battle. How do you think this can be avoided? Seeking for help, we'll come back to it, Nanama. Jonathan Adami, very educated discussion. Thank you, Jonathan. Francisca Arthur, good afternoon. Please, how do I get the right stimulation for my 2 under 4 years old children? It's a question. I'll come back to it. Elena Onyame, I was literally taught ICT by my children. And when I face any challenge, they tell me I'm getting old. Quite funny, but they feel very important and useful. Good and intentional interaction with them, key. Because though I have 19 and 16-year-old daughters, we have screen time. It's a tough ride, but it's doable. I ask about how their day went, type of friends they have, etc. It can be stressful after a day's work, but let's have the real spirit. I see them as kids assisted, and it helped a long way. It's not rosy though. Okay. Comments so far, there are still some more. So let's come back to our question, and there are some questions that we need to address. Ethel, would you top up with the resilience and building emotional well-being?
Okay, yes, thank you very much. So when it comes to building resilience, I believe that in terms of promoting it in this 21st century, we need to ensure that we create a safe and nurturing environment, a loving environment where the child feels comfortable expressing their emotions and then also getting help or support. The other bit would be just like what Dr. Ando Arthur said, and I think that is very, very important, that it is okay to learn from our mistakes. So you need to teach your children to navigate the challenges that they experience, because challenges are actually part of life. And it's okay to experience challenges or hardships. And so you need to teach them problem-solving techniques and how to manage their stresses. That is when they encounter, say an opposition or when they encounter certain challenges. And then also the self-care practice, because like I mentioned earlier, every parent or caregiver becomes a first model. So it is what you are teaching, what you are doing, that the child would also learn from. So the other bit would also make them see or view setbacks as opportunities for growth. As and when you encounter such, it is okay. It doesn't mean that that's the end of it. This is what you can do. So you can guide your child so that they get to learn. Sometimes all you have to do is just put in a few things for them to come to that conclusion. So it's very important that as parents and caregivers, we cultivate a growth mindset in our children, where we emphasize the importance of effort, resilience, and learning from failures. Because like I mentioned, failures, challenges are all part of life. Some children are able to move from 0 to 100 real quick in the sense that once they encounter any little difficulty, they feel their life has come to an end. So they will catastrophize. I mean, life has ended. I'm not good at this. Nothing good can come out of, but it's also sometimes will depend on what parents have been saying or what parents have been teaching. So promote a positive self-esteem. Nurture their self-esteem by emphasizing what are their strengths, what are they really good at. My child is very good when it comes to remembering dates, everybody's birthday, they're able to recall that, they're able to recollect locations or places. They do very when it comes to interacting with other children. What are they really good at? They're very good when it comes to gadgets and fixing things. All of these things should, it's like catching those good skills or catching those good abilities and emphasizing or making noise about them until the child actually believes what it is that they carry. So encourage some positive self-talk. So teach them to appreciate those unique qualities they have and celebrate those little wins. Parents are very much into, or well, I've realized that to a large extent, we're very much into the big things. So the child did very well and they received maybe a trophy or maybe a certificate of award. They were the very best, or they were the overall best. These are the things we like to celebrate. But then again, even if your child was able to move from 40 to 45, for me, I tell parents, that is a big win. They have moved from one to the other and it can only get better. So tell them that was great. It's like you're able to identify that they were at their lowest at this point. You don't have to let them know that, but you can encourage them that, look, you got 42 the last time. Now you're at 45. That's a big difference. So can we try and maybe do like 50 the next time? So it's like it's gradual. So those little wins should be identified by parents so that we can actually foster a healthy sense of self-worth. And then also teach emotional intelligence. Teach them to recognize and understand and regulate their emotions. So when you encourage empathy and then also taking notes of perspectives, fostering their ability to navigate their social interactions, and then also how they can form meaningful relationships with others is really important. Then maybe one last bit I would add would be encouraging healthy risk-taking. We are not helping our children at this time at all, I haven't observed. We like to play it safe. So support your children to take some appropriate risks and step out of their comfort zone. So I think that's what one of the speakers mentioned earlier. We like to play it safe. We like to just keep them in that cocoon, that safe nest. We don't like to get them hurt. We don't like to, he's going to fall down. I mean, this is going to happen. Encourage them to take some risks. All right, to try new activities, to explore their interests and learn from both their successes and failures. Because if not, and you're not there, how are your children going to navigate life? How are they going to go through all of the challenges? Because mind you, it is not going to be good all the time. What if they grow up and they get into a space where, they have a boss who is constantly picking on them or constantly saying, Nick, how are they going to deal with that? How are they going to manage it when you're not there? Ideally, parenting ends when you're in the grave. But then we also hope that, as you're parenting, you are teaching them or guiding them to a place where they can become independent. So for that sake, from the very beginning, these are the things we need to do if we want to build some resilience. Thank you.
You see, thank you very much, Etta. You see that I'm smiling. A healthy risk-taking. I witnessed the parent reprimand the son with the question, what are you doing outside of the gate? Come on, go inside. What are you? Just standing in front of the gate, he was afraid that something will happen to the son. And there we were, we go out to our park. With this time, there are no parks. We go out to the park, play football, come back with some sauce, and our mother will put mentholated spirit in water and you smell it. But I mean, this time you can't do that. So he was being reprimanded to get back into the house. And there was nobody in the house to play with. So he goes into the house and it is the gadgets or the TV. And that is the problem. I think that we'll do some questions from our participants now. My questions, I've not exhausted them, but I will see how we'll go back to some questions from our participants now. Francis Innocent. So I've come back to Francis' question. Okay, yes, that's where I am. Madam Obing, please, how do I deal with my child of 6 years old who is hyperactive? And the only way to calm him, as most time, is the screen. Watching kids on the internet is difficult, I must say. So how does he deal with that?
Right. So in terms of the hyperactivity, I'm not saying that that is what it is, but it might also sound like maybe a symptom for some other challenge, like a behavioral challenge like ADHD. So if you have a child who is hyper and the only thing that seems to help is with screen time, it means that has become a wrong way or mechanism for getting maybe some quietness or getting your child to sit. So there are healthier ways of dealing with your child or healthier ways of getting them to, example, sit still for a while. What about using rewards? So the screen time can be a reward instead for when the child does what they're supposed to do. Now, children thrive a lot, or they do very well when it comes to having in place what we call, just looking for the right word. So when you are able to, example, have some rules in place or having, some clear guidelines on how they should manage their life, it helps. So routine, that is the word. So having a clear routine for a child really helps them in terms of thriving. So if you have a child who is hyper, well, one of the things you can do would be, if you're able to sit still for 10 minutes, then I'm going to probably have you watch maybe your favorite program for a couple of minutes. Because ideally for that age as well, the number of hours that they should be exposed to screen, according to the American Pediatric Society, is about 2 hours maximum. But even then, there should be some supervision. So it means that even if we're allowing our children to have the screen for whatever number of hours, it means that the parent must actually be present. A caregiver must be present so that you get to interact together. Some research was conducted in terms of screen, and it was actually realized that children don't benefit or don't learn so much when they are left with just the screen. But the moment you have a human being present in that interaction, they learn better. So having them see just the images there is not enough. Even if we were to say that, well, they have some healthy content in there, that is true. But even with that, you must be present, ask them certain questions about it. So for the hyperactivity, there are other questions I would like to ask. Is it only when the screen is the screen the only time where they seem to pay attention? Are there other things they're able to, or other things they like? Use those things to get them to do what it is you want, and then create a routine as much as possible. Then for you as a parent, it means you have to put in other healthy ways of getting your child to interact. So a couple of years ago, games like Pilolo, we had Ampe, we had Oware Ludu, all those things, we don't hear of them anymore. Our children are going into all complex things. I mean, games, and a lot of them are very violent and aggressive. We've stopped. What happened? These were things that were helping in terms of building their communication, social interaction with others, empathy, losing and not being a sore loser. All of those things are there, but it requires the intentionality again. So that means that you are spending that time with your child. Maybe your child is addicted at this time. That is why that seems to be the only thing. But if we need to go back and do a reversal, that would mean we're using that one rather as a way for them to earn. So they need to earn and not feel that it is their right. If you want to have access to this, then do this or do that, and let that be clearly spelled out so the child also knows what is expected of them. I hope I've answered her question. If the person is also not sure, probably could mention the other consent, and maybe that would help to find out whether or not it's also not ADHD. Then the other bit will be mindful of the kind of foods the child is also eating. And then also if it's gluten-free, for example, and then also maybe some other healthy activities, getting them to jump about a little bit, the exercise, so that they also get worn out and tired as well. So I hope I have answered the question.
You've done your bit. There are a lot of questions. So
Dr. Arthur,
perhaps we can, yes, Amma.
and please, I think that I would like to say something concerning this particular question. Sorry to cut you in.
Okay,
but,
that's fine.
Yes, Ethel has said a lot, but I would want to say that if we think that a child is hyperactive, it is good that we get a formal assessment for that child. The reason being that if we did a formal assessment and we identify that this child indeed had a problem, then we can intervene early, because the early interventions, have better outcomes. So let's not just sit back and say we want to try these things, but it's very important that if we are concerned, then we should get a formal assessment for that child, because there's no point if there's an early intervention that will give us, better outcomes. Why sit? I'm saying this because a lot of times, parents have concerns, and then we wait and wait and wait. We say, oh, nanny swear she. We have all sorts of excuses and reasons. And by the time we realize that child, is grown, and then the interventions become more difficult. So let's also get an assessment for a child if we are concerned about the hyperactivity. Sometimes too, parents are concerned, but when we do the assessment, they are not really issues that we should be concerned about. So to allay, the fears of the parents and all that, it is important that we get a formal assessment for that child. Then I would also want to add on a bit on the resilience. I think that resilience is biblical, because even God, our creator, expects us to be resilient. I mean, that is why he would watch us go through some situations, and he says that when you go through it, I am right there with you. But the question we've been asking is, why do we have to go through it? It is because we need to be able to navigate the challenges of, this life. And therefore, if we are not able to experience these ones with these challenges, with some guidance, with some help, like all the other speakers have said, later on in life, when our parents are no more, then it becomes a real challenge for us. So that is what I want to add on to. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So that going forward, there are a lot of questions. I hope we can be able to respond to most of them, which would satisfy our participants. That being said, if we can be very punchy with our responses to the answers, that would greatly help. I know that you would have to explain the reason why something needs to be done and all that, but if you can make it a bit punchy, that will really help. As a parent, how do you demonstrate to your children that you love them equally, no discrimination? Dr. Akuno. Dr. Akuno, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here. I can hear you, please.
The question is, as a parent, how do you demonstrate to your children that you love them equally? From the sociologist's point of view, how do you respond to this?
Well, thank you very much. There's a little challenge there because children may have their different needs and their concerns. Some may need more time, some with a little effort, they can pick up something on their own. Now, if we are actually parents who care, who are not biased, who are not discriminating, the children are aware. So we shouldn't saddle ourselves with trying to love our children equally. I don't know what is
Dr. Kono has dropped off. Johnny, would
Hello?
you? Yes, okay, good, you're back.
I guess what we mean by equally is that we are trying to show love, affection without discrimination, without
right.
any taints of biases. That is fine. However, you see, the children may need or may require different support, attention. And that is not a sign of bias. So for example, if you have a more feeble child who needs more attention, or even a child with a mental health challenge, that child, for example, if a child has autism, you may have to spend more time with that child as against that differently able child. So if that becomes a point of contention that you love that child more than the child who is more resilient, who is more capable, and then that is not fair. That's why I'm saying that for us, what you need to do is that set your own standard. This is what I have to do. Don't do anything with any intent of discriminating or showing signs of bias. But if the children, any of them at any point in time, need extra support because of a particular situation, I think you just have to explain to the other child so that it may not sound like you do not love him or her equally. However, there is also a caution, because sometimes this idea about love is the way we treat the children, which some of them may interpret as a form of discrimination. And that is where communication is very important. Sometimes it may be conscious, sometimes it may not even be conscious. It may be on the blind side of the parent. And if we have a system in place where we communicate, the children have a platform to voice out, they can voice out their concerns and have it addressed. But it's not, we shouldn't stress ourselves trying to say that I want everything to be done equally, even where the child doesn't need that support.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, Dr. Arthur.
Yes, Ethel.
Can I briefly add on to this one?
Okay, go ahead.
Right, so just last 2 weeks, I had an assessment ongoing, and I had a mom who had just had a second child. The first is currently 6 years, and she just had a second child. And she mentioned certain challenges with the older child. So she's been the only child for 6 years, and suddenly there's a new baby. So there was some rivalry of a sort that was going on. And I remember after the engagement with the young girl, I mean, it was so bad to the extent that there were times where she had mentioned harming herself, as in killing herself. She had also mentioned, or there were times where she would actually go and kick the baby, and how much she hated the baby and all of that. These are very strong words. So what happened was that after having a conversation with Jester, and I called mom in and gave some brief support and counseling in terms of what can be done, I asked her to go and hug her mom. Then she wasn't able, she just stood there, started smiling, but she couldn't move. So, I gradually coaxed her, and she did. So when she left, and I asked mom, when was the last time you hugged your daughter? She said she couldn't remember. Then I said, well, I think it's time you actually start doing that again, because that means that although there's a baby and baby needs a lot more attention, it's also important to also have time for the other children. So regardless of the abilities or the capabilities of each child, every child will still be seen as an individual who still requires attention of some sort. So I said, one of the things you can do would be to spend some time alone. So it can be me and mommy having a date. We can, just go, example, to the salon so you can braid your hair and leave the baby. Then that would mean you are actually sharing that time with your child again, because all the things that she used to do before, she can't do them. She used to sleep by you. She's not doing that anymore because now baby has taken that time. Baby is crying all the time and all of that. So just adding on, we still will need to make that time for each child so that they still feel like they are still special. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ethel. So back to basics. We should make it an intentional time to spend with them, to communicate, patiently listen to them, explore with them. Okay. Akofa said, please, to some extent, too much screen time, phone and iPad can be detrimental in terms of graduation. How do I convince my children to minimize its use? I think, well, Ethel did mention something about pairing it with reward and some activity, but maybe Johnny would speak to it. We'll share a different perspective on the journey.
Hello,
Johnny.
Yes, if you can come again. My internet is giving me some challenges. Come again with your question, please.
Did you miss me? I know.
In fact, I did miss you. My
The question from Akofa says, yes, I know. The question from Akofa says, please, to some extent, too much screen time, either by phone or iPad, can be detrimental in terms of radiation. How do I convince my children to minimize its use, please?
Yes, I think that is a very important question. And as the previous speakers have all spoken about, screen time is really creating a lot of problems for our children. Of course, there are quite a lot of very positive stuff on the screen as well. But let us again be conscious to let the children be, on screen within some specified, period in a day, in a week. Okay, and not to just leave them, to have the screen at all times. So I think that it's important sometimes to just have the discussion as we are having with them. Sit them down. And again, you see, when there's no relationship with you and your children, how do you expect to even modify their behavior? I think that we need to make that effort at creating that rapport with our children, just so they'll be able to open up to us, and we will also be able to open up to them to see the consequences of what they do. Sometimes I personally use persuasion, to convince my children on certain things. Okay, the question that you have to build your argument, you have to build your case, making sure that the case will be understood at their level. Sometimes you can also use some fear appeals. I mean, the consequence of people who have been on the screen for a very long time, what are some of the consequences? So what are some of the problems they have encountered? Let them read about those stories, let them see those pictures, and then they will learn something, one or two from it. It's very important. And of course, sometimes too, I think it's important that we create alternative settings. The question is, if the child is on the screen, possibly that is where the child is finding some psychological needs being met, need for belonging, need for validation, need for acceptance. I mean, when we don't create those alternative settings where they can get all these needs, then of course, asking them to come out of the screen, will be difficult. Because whether we like it or not, the screen or the virtual medium has also become alternative communities. In community psychology, we call them relational communities. So most of the psychological needs that we used to have in the physical communities, people are getting it in the relational communities. So when the physical communities are not being so enriched in terms of children deriving all these psychological needs, then obviously they will stay on the virtual or the screen. So I think it's important that we consciously also create that physical space where we can help the children to meet these critical needs of acceptance, belonging, and validation. Yeah, so that is what I would say on that.
Okay, good one. Thank you. Akofa asked another important question. I'm very interested to hearing your response. Raising two kids, a boy 8 years and a girl 4 years, in a single room with spouse, I try to educate them to dress up at separate times, but it is sometimes difficult. Is there a better way?
Hey, this one there. this one there. Look, this is a very difficult question. Sometimes the socio-economic situation may dictate some of these things. I don't think that anybody will intentionally decide to keep the children in a single room when there's an opportunity to get separate rooms for them. So in this case, what can we do? I have lived in a single room before with a whole big brother and a wife and the children, and they had to still find a way of compartmentalizing that single room. And I think some of us are very familiar with that. Yes, you can still create partitions in a single room. Okay, no matter how small it is. Right, at least that could be some of the ways you can improvise, some of these things. But I think that you still would have to educate the children for them to really know about themselves, their physiology, their psychology, the physiology and the psychology of the female sibling. I have boys, I have girls, but I don't know, but I felt the need to just create that session where I had to let them understand their psychology and physiology, okay? And so when the girls are in their rooms and they are cleaning up, they are dressing, the boys will naturally just leave the room. When the boys are also trying to dress up, the girls, that is what I have created in my home. And so they do it themselves. And I think that no matter how difficult socioeconomic situation may dictate this, we still can help them by creating that awareness in them, for them to really be self-aware and be able to also understand, others. When you do this, at least they grow with it. Just so when they are also out there and somebody is trying to even have a peep at them, they will still try to really, prevent that. We have had cases where we have had elder family members taking advantage of children in the extended family system, all because of some of these things. And I think that the earlier we create awareness in them, the better.
Okay. Dennis, your question has been answered a few times. Charles Atia, sparing the rod in context does not mean refraining from caning. It is a terminology used in reference to discipline. Hence, that scripture should not stir the thought of caning alone. Discipline is a good interpretation of it. And discipline is not done with caning. That's a comment. Okay. Parkour's question reads, we have 2 kids. We have no helper. Every morning before school and after school, I wish I can teach my elder kid 3 years, but the little one, 1 year, will be distracting the mother, The mother will be in the kitchen cooking. And when the little one joins the mother at the kitchen, she touches things. There was one time she poured hot water on the stove. I think she poured hot water from the stove. So now the only option is to put on the TV for the little one, who is 1 year. This also makes it uneasy for the elder child to concentrate on his learning, who is 3 years. What do I do? I think I saw Ethel responding to that in the mail, but Ethel, can you respond to that? Screen time, 1 and 3 years, I mean.
Right, so even with the screen time, it should mean that the parent should be present to monitor and then to also engage. So for that age, I would say no to screen time. There are other things you can do with your child in the kitchen. So 1 year, your child is a baby, and that's exactly what they're exploring. How do they get to learn if you don't allow them to explore? So if your child is there, just make sure that you've taken away anything that could harm or hurt your child. If they need to sit in a corner, put some toys over there as you are chopping or doing whatever it is, then you can also be looking at your child and still talking. Have them at least within the corner of your eye, so you know that they are still visible, rather than just leave them, example, in the room, maybe watching the TV. So what if whilst you're away, your child decides to go and unplug or maybe touch something you're not supposed to, maybe an electrical cable or something else? So just to answer that question, I believe that there are still ways of managing the situation, although it might be difficult. So if it's just you, have your child in a corner whilst you're cooking, and then you can actually focus on your child. And then for the child that is even 3, even then your child 3 years is still too young. So whilst your child is doing their homework, you are cooking, the other child can also be in a corner. 1 year, you can still even put your baby, because 1 year, your child is still a baby. You can actually put them behind you, wrap them up, and then sort one thing out. When you're done, then you can move on to something else. I believe that'll be better than leaving them to explore and maybe, exposing them to some kind of danger.
All right, thank you, Ethel. Nanama Aqua says, it appears that parenting is being affected by the advent of the crumbling traditional family, causing a kind of battle. How do you think this can be avoided? I want the sociologist respond to that. Dr. Akono.
Please, can you come again?
Okay.
The question, I didn't hear it well, I'm sorry.
Okay, that's all right. It appears that parenting is being affected by the advent of the crumbling traditional family, causing a kind of battle. How do you think this can be avoided?
Well, thank you. Whilst we are losing the traditional family, other institutions are also taking over. They are coming in. For example, the church is providing a platform for some other activities, engagement that the traditional family would have done. So it's about creating alternatives. So for example, what I normally encourage people to do is that whilst some of us are living far away from our traditional circles, we should be able to create other network. Now we talk about computer aid network that may provide that support. I've mentioned the church. Even in the community, that small community in which we live, in my area, we've been able to create an extended kind of family where at least for 4 or 5 families, we are together. When we are not there, we have each other holding the fort so that at least our children can have the space to develop in such a manner that they will not be affected. So it's tough, and especially for those of us in an urbanized environment, it's not going to be easy. We also need to take advantage of other activities. In an urban centers, you have recreational activities where you go and meet people. We can't isolate ourselves all the time in the name of, some are expensive, some are also moderate. So some of these activities can help take over some other help that we would have received from the traditional family circle. So once again, it's all being able to take advantage of what we have and not to brood over what we've already lost. Some of us will say that, oh, if it were in those olden days, in as much as we've lost a lot of some of the good things about the olden period, former system, we still have novelties, new ideas, new trends that can help hold the fort and support the growth and development of our families and children. So I think that is what we have to be alerted to and take advantage of wherever we find ourselves.
All right, thank you, Dr. Kuno. Francisca Arthur, I think, Arthur, this question.
Hello, Doc.
Yes.
Can I just add to Dr. Akono's submission?
Please do.
So I think that I would want to use this opportunity to plead all of us. I mean, I think most of us as parents or will be parents. We need to help our children have an identity. It is very important. We are a people. We are a people also defined by our history, defined by our culture, defined by our social, political, historical events. So we are a unique set of people. That must be established first, and we must help our children to also know that. Of course, we are living in a global world where children also need to learn a few things from other places, but we do not have to lose what makes who we are, what makes children who they should be. Please, let's make a conscious effort to also speak with our children in our local languages. Let's make that conscious effort because a lot of our values, a lot of our culture are embedded in the local languages. In fact, I was actually, going that wrong way, speaking with my children in English. Then something just struck me. No, let me try to switch. And truly, when I started switching, the children are asking me a lot of questions about the language, about expressions in our language. And by so doing, they are getting to learn.
Kando, you dropped off.
And grow with it. Yes, so that can be a base upon which they can build, newer forms of identities as they grow up. So that is very important, and I'm pleading. On this note, Doc, I think I would have to rush for a lecture. My student have been waiting for.
I get your point.
Thank you so much.
All right. I think you've said your last words. I was going to allow Priska to ask her question, then we'll round it up. I'm pretty sure we'll have to do a part 2 of this because there are many questions that I have not asked, and there are many questions too from the participants. So we'll have to put all of them together and see about a part 2. So Priska, I think Priska just dropped off. Well, then that should be it. Let me ask the final question, then you would make your final. Priska, you are back. Unmute yourself and ask your question.
Doc, thank you so much. My question goes this way. As a parent, you have trying your own quota, your part to ensure that your kids meet the standards given them. But this is a case whereby they go to school and they have other peer pressure ideas. You see, maybe the direction the peer pressures are going is not something. They go to school, they receive different types of peer pressure. So what do you do about these issues? Because peer pressure is where the problem is coming from, especially when you have a teenage children. Please, how can we handle such issues?
Okay, so we are talking about peer pressure coming from the schools for our teenage children. I think I'll let Ethel respond to that. Ethel, can you please respond to that peer pressure among our children?
All
You're
right.
in the school, so you witness that much often.
Okay, so it actually starts from
Sorry, Priska, please drop your hand.
It actually starts with the foundation. What has been done from the very beginning. If we have a good relationship with our children, the pressure would come because it's all part of the experiences that we all would have. We do have that as ourselves, ourselves as well as parents. But how are we able to deal with that? We talked earlier on about the resilience that comes in, understanding that, yes, we are not the same. We all come from different places. We have different experiences. And there are certain things that somebody might have, but then we also might not have. Earlier, we also talked about focusing on what your child's strengths are, what are their weaknesses, making them believe what it is that they also do have. I believe that once we set that foundation from the beginning and we ensure that we have a good relationship with our children, there's something called attachment. Right from the very beginning, our responses to our children and building that relationship from the very beginning, it helps because it creates a certain trust and then helps us to explore. But at the same time as well, we know that we can always come back because the parent is there probably to answer your questions. If there's any fear, there's that platform where we can actually talk about how we feel, what it is that we're going on, or what it is that we're experiencing in the school setting. And so for the pressure, it is normal. There's nothing wrong with it, and there's nothing that we can do to stop it because every child is coming from, their own unique experiences, and their background might be different from yours. But it is what you are teaching your children, what you are telling your children from the very beginning, building them up and equipping them from that for that experience. That is what happens, or that is what matters. But if you don't do that at all, it makes it difficult because suddenly they get into a certain environment and people are saying all sorts of things. They are showing off every time they have new things. They are using the latest phone. I have children coming into clinic with phones that even I don't use. They'll come and probably look at the laptop. They are using, the Apple bits. I mean, all sorts. What do you do? I mean, it's all part of, we are all not the same. Even in the Ghanaian parlance, I think we have this saying that in Senyina and Yepe was the same. So it tells you that we are all different. So what about getting your children to value the differences, to appreciate their own strengths and their, their uniqueness, what they also bring to the table, rather than what someone else has and what somebody is doing, what they're not doing. Somebody is traveling to Dubai every weekend or every holiday. They are traveling and taking pictures and all that. What are the things you can also do as a parent to make your child feel special, to make them feel, good, without them feeling that you have to do the same thing like everybody else? So I hope that we can actually do that. And then in that regard, we can actually get our children to be more resilient to all the pressures that will come, because as for the pressure, it will come. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Amwabudu would like to add something. Please go ahead.
Okay, so what I want to add is that especially for a parent who unfortunately has not been able to establish that kind of relationship with a child, and so it becomes difficult for the child to come and talk to you about some of these pressures. It isn't too late. We can unlearn what we've been doing and let them be our friends. But I think that these children or adolescents, you know, could also have other family members that they are very okay with. So for instance, I have nieces and nephews who would come to me and tell me about all the issues that happen in school. And they would tell me that, oh, Auntie Amma, don't tell mommy that I came to say this to you. Fine. So if they would have to feel that whatever they are telling me would be held in confidence. And sometimes when you are told some of these things, you can't just sit quiet and then watch. You would have to tell, you know, whoever is supposed to be in the know that this is what is going on. But you have to be very careful and ensure that you win their trust before. So even if our children are not speaking to us, there could be other family members. I mean, other family members that they could talk to. And then when they tell us about some of the things, we should be very careful how we react, because the way we react will determine whether they will come back to us or not. But the reality is that they are going through a lot of challenges and they need adults that they can confide in. So we should be ready to provide that kind of support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bodu. Ladies and gentlemen, when you look at your time, it's 4 minutes past 2. Way past our time at 1:30. We're exceeded by 34 minutes. Please, permit me, I sincerely apologize, but we have to end the program because our facilitators, I have to push them to stay longer. They all are busy like all of us. So we would end here. Hopefully we'll do a part 2 of this. I have not exhausted my questions. You also have questions, a lot of questions in the chat box. Hopefully next month, we'll be able to do a part 2 of this and respond to all your questions for all of us to be good parents as we can be. So I'll let my facilitators put in their last closing remarks, and then we will end the program here. So let me start with you, Ethel.
All right, so I'd like to say thank you so much for the opportunity. And it just means that with all of this discussion, the onus lies on us as parents and as caregivers. It starts with us. So let's continue to learn, and this is a great platform to get, lots of information. If there's certain things you have done before, you didn't know any better, I mean, that's also okay. We can always do things differently. And so it's important that remember that children, I mean, some people would actually refer to them as little humans. Yes, they are humans, just like you and I. And whatever it is that you help, in terms of the environment, being intentional about parenting and creating a nurturing and great environment can impact the child's cognitive, socio-emotional, the spiritual aspects as well. And then also their physical development. So I hope with that, we'll be able to make the time, we'll get the information and the knowledge, and then also give, our children the very best. And the reason is we're hoping for a better generation, a different generation. And if we're expecting that or looking forward to that, it would mean that it starts with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ethel. Dr. Akono, your closing remarks, please.
Right, thank you very much. Well, we are in a very critical moment in our lives as parents, yet we can still hope for the best if we do our bits. Let us be intentional. Let us learn to communicate, and let us also seek knowledge. We don't have to assume that it shall be well. We have this cliche that yes, God will do his part, but in the Lord, so that they will even be better than we were. And in doing that, let us also not fret. Let us not get depressed. Let us not get anxious. The little that we can do, let us do it with all our might and our strength. Let us help as much as possible and not shirk our responsibilities thinking that the school will do it, the media will do it. Nobody will do it better than we can do it ourselves. So let us exert ourselves as parents. Let us share where we lack the knowledge. Let us actually ask. And above all, we are in an age where we have to be careful with the way we criticize and also compare, especially these children. They will quickly jump out of our vessel and be in the hands of the wrong people. So let's find so much of the time that they need. Let's treasure our time with our children. That is what they would need from us, not castles, not estate, nothing. they need character and resilience. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Akono. Dr. Mambodu, your final words, please.
Okay. So what I would want to say is that in as much as we're making the effort to be better parents, it is okay not to be okay. And I say that again, it is okay not to be okay. When we are overwhelmed, let us get help, because help is readily available. And when we get help, we are able to become better parents. Yeah. I want to also say that self-care is not a luxury for parents. Self-care is not a luxury. Let us take care of ourselves so that we will become, better parents. You cannot give what you do not have. So it's important that through it all, we make some time to take care of ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we've spent quite some good 2 hours to digest this issue. Yet we are not done yet. There are still more questions. I can see a lot of messages that I've not read, and there are a lot of questions there. I have not exhausted my questions. So I'm pretty sure after conversing with the facilitators, we might do a part 2 and try to discuss all the questions. But for me as a parent, yes, the digital space is here. We can't do away with them. As parents, we are working hard to balance work and life for the family, for ourselves, and all that. And that is stopping us from spending so much time with them. So we are not communicating well, but we've been advised to be intentional about communicating with them. We should be patient to listen to them. If they want to talk to us, we should be empathetic to what they have to say. We should explore with them and all that. But for me, then again, we should know how to draw the line. And importantly, we should not compare, because comparing them with negative effects will let them jump out of our boats, and that is quite risky. So at this point, let's take care of ourselves as parents. And when it becomes critical, don't forget to seek for help. Help is very, very important. Early help seeking has better outcomes for whatever the problem is. So don't forget to seek for help when you found yourself wanting. On that note, I want to thank all of you. Most have dropped off, yes, because we've exceeded the time, but I want to thank all of you, the over 300 who have stayed up to this point, and all those who joined earlier on. A very big thank you for being part of it. Then finally, to our 4 facilitators, you've been very fantastic. I mean, your knowledge and your expertise is clear, and you've done justice to the issue. I hope you will join us to do the part 2 of this topic. On that note, I say a very big thank you to all of you again, and hopefully next month, same time, if we're in good health and life, we'll meet again discussing the same topic, part 2 of it. Until then, enjoy your weekend and don't do what is not expected of you. Thank you very much. Enjoy your weekend. The meeting has ended. Thank you.
Thank you too. Have a good weekend.
Thank you very much and have a good weekend. Dr. Abuedu, Dr. Akono, and
all right,
Ethel.
my pleasure, Doc. Thank you too. God bless you.
Thank you so much.